Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be in such good tradition. Always when I'm in Austria, I have to mention a joke because I'm working very much with humor, which relieves us from reality and helps us to speak truth to power. And the joke goes the way, what is the difference between Germany and Austria? Do you have an idea? Well, we can argue on that, but I won't do it here. No, I have something else in mind. It's the Germans are very pessimistic about the future, and the Austrians are very optimistic about the past. And somehow I can't, shake the feeling that it's true. What is my role? I'm not a military, which is very important. So I have no knowledge, deep understanding on the craft of military. But I think I understand something else. And in Germany, there is the Clausewitz Network for Strategic Studies, which was founded by the General Staff 15 years ago, roundabout, as an answer to the lack of strategic thinking, which is not difficult to understand. Germany, past World War II, strategic thinking, well, not that good. Up until 1990, strategic thinking was done by the occupation of the Allies. We don't call them Allies today anymore, but still. And then we had 20 years to think everything will go the way we were used to. So we are making the payments, and the US is making the security. It goes the further way that Russia is going for the cheap energy and China is going for the cheap labor. Somehow it did not work out. The network was founded, and finally this year in Germany for the first time there is a new military strategy. We call it Zeitenwende, so it's abroad from Germany, very important. For us in Germany, we are looking for it still. But you see that the idea of analytics 15 years ago, a forecast for strategic thinking, led to a network which is capable of putting people and ideas together. And it was, I think, Mozart who went to Italy to get inspirations, coming back here and being a superstar. So by exchanging ideas, that's the idea of the network we have. But I'm not a military. And that's important. It will be one of the major take-home messages from my talk, that we live in a time of peace still and of civilian leadership, the primate of the politics, as we call it. So my side on the table is setting the rules. Your side, as you're wearing a uniform, is to follow the rules. And nobody ever asked if those both things align. So I will critique a little bit maybe the sanctification of war and the sanctification of studying on war and so on, and show that maybe we are on the wrong path. I was pushed into that by Matthias, who asked me to talk about maneuver warfare, and I had no idea what is maneuver. I heard it for the first time when he asked me, and as always I ask the ones who are capable on those topics, which are German officers. I'm leading a network with a lot of General Staff officers. I thought it's an easy thing. I'm going to them. What's maneuver? And somehow, like yesterday, I came to the same conclusion. I'm not sure if there's a thing like maneuver. And I will show why. But if it's not, what is it? So I called the talk and I developed the question. Maneuver is the answer. What is the question? Or can I see the question again? What do you have to know about me? I'm an independent actor, so independence is very expensive. I have to take care for my own bills, which gives me the freedom of movement. I'm taking a lot of use of it, which is very helpful in the debates with generals and admirals who are, for usual, very used to the implicit command structure, which works out. By trade, I'm a philosopher. I don't know if you already had the chance to debate with one. That's a saying from a philosopher 100 years ago. Asking us a question only leads that you don't understand your own question. So that's not an accident. It's the method I'm using. If you don't understand the question after my talk, then I've accomplished my thing. Anyway, let's go into it. What are we doing? We are debating war and peace times. Think about it. Grim tales have a lot of tales, a lot of saying or telling how soldiers feel in peace times. Nobody needs a soldier during peace. We don't want to pay them, we don't want their skills, they are messy, bloody, uncomfortable. I was very glad on the talk yesterday who said maybe it's maneuver to be cleaner. Oh yes. We are obviously cleaner, aren't we? We are better. So we know those tales for hundreds of years. That's pretty difficult to think about the most uncomfortable thing we can imagine in times of peace. That's why we invented in Germany the wonderful word Zeitenwende, so turning point in history. That's an epochal term. It's, well, we're talking epochs. Why not? So most of you are soldiers in peace times. And you experience difficulties that your own mastership, you're masters of war, you're the skill set making war, and you have to explain yourself to people maybe like me. And I don't like you. You want to tell me that I have to die, I have to leave my home, I have to go with people I really don't like and I wouldn't choose not to talk with in very small rooms. It's, nah. So we made a narrative on war which suits our needs in times of peace. And that's one of the theses I want to present, that maneuver warfare is with high chance exactly this kind of thing. That we don't talk about war, but we talk about us and how we want the reality to be and how it should be, or like the commander yesterday put it, where is he? Very thankful. We decided to be smarter. So obviously we are superior. You will see that's true, I will show you. We are superior, and so if we are superior, we have also the superior way of warfare and everything is fine. No? Yes, let's go. Let's try another approach. This quote is from Heidi Toffel. The way we make war reflects the way we make wealth. So the terms on analytics on war we are capable of are economical ones. We analyze them by means of efficiency, of speed, of resources, as the optimal allocation of resources, and so forth. So there's a big dominance of a theory framework which we can't recognize as we are midden in the wood and don't see the trees out of it. And I think that puts it very well into one sentence, that the way we try to define war in economical principles are the same as we are trying to save our peace, making wealth, which is the major topic in the debates I know, at least in Germany. So Germany is big enough that we have the luxury only to make interior politics. Foreign politics is far, far away. And the major arguments we have in a political debate is wealth, are maybe even taxes, which is why we don't talk about taxes, we just pay them. About rents, about social welfare, about hospitals, one of the most important things we have right now. We don't talk about the finer things, but we talk about the material welfare we have in Germany. In the same way, we debate war. How costly it will come us if we switch to another framework for war. Who is going to pay for it? Again, an economical category. And if you debate maneuver warfare, being rapid, being fast. Why? Why is it so much better? Because it's economical. Because we need to be efficient to get as fast as possible back home and have the welfare again. So the next question I wanted to ask, why war? Take a step back and ask ourselves, why is there war? The modern analysis of war is very simple. It's evil. So everybody who is making theory on war or even practice on war is also evil. So congratulations, achievement unlocked, you're evil. That's the whole debate we have in the civilian world on a short note. War is evil. It's a category of moral. And you will see how important it is. Let's try another one. Why war? Have you asked yourself this question any time in the last, years? Why are we doing war? The modern way of talking about war is to say that's a stupid debate. Let's have a formal positive definition of peace. Let's try to define peace without the need of war, without the urgency to talk on war, which is really difficult to do. We call it dialectical thinking, so easily explained. What is night? Well, the time between days. What is warm? The difference between cold or towards cold. What is peace? The absence of war. But for 40 years, now around about 50 years, we have a debate which, with many institutions, especially scientific institutions, why scientific? Well, everything is better with science, isn't it? That's why we're doing so much science. Scientific institutions, this whole claim are to define peace without war. So war is the lack of reason. You're not only evil, sorry to tell you, but you're also stupid. Because if you weren't stupid, you wouldn't make war, would you? If you ask the question why war, and you include reasonable thinking into it, that war might be a result of reason and not the lack of reason, you're going to have a completely different set of rules you're going to approach. So if somebody of you was married for 40 years, I don't think there are so many here, but still, and you have divorced after 40 years, you don't divorce yourself because of the lack of understanding, the lack of information, or the lack of communication. But you are going to divorce yourself because you know, you've been talking, you've been tried everything, because you are reasoning. And maybe for war we have also this set of rules that war might be a result of reason. So reasoning with war is part of human nature, and global nature should be done with the categories of reason and not with the categories of moral. The moral is the framework for the do's and don'ts afterwards, but not for the analytics at the beginning. So why war? That's why we are talking about those topics. Easily explained. You understand it? And somebody does not agree on this slide. That's the whole idea. And we know we don't know for sure, but if we listen carefully what the people on the red side of the, you also see why we call it red teaming and blue teaming, don't you? We don't call it Soviets anymore, but still, also in the cyber and attack, I'm doing a lot of technological stuff. We call it red teaming. We know that the red teaming side is aiming for more than the blue dots here, the blue part. Nope. Yes. Okay, so that's what my benefits from working with officers. I'm quoting a friend of mine. I know from lawyers too, they say a look into the laws helps you with a heuristical thinking. A look on the maps helps you with strategic thinking. We have a theory for it. It's not a good one, but it's the only one we have. If you don't heard about it, take your time afterwards, the so-called heartland theory. So 100 years ago, around about 120 years, we tried to understand why are there specific kind of wars which repeat themselves. The heartland theory is one of the many frameworks you can assume. We will dive a little bit into it. But if you see the line from 1900 up until now, in my fields of studies, nothing has changed. We have the same narratives, we have the same political aims and ambitions, we have the same trade and economical categories. It's the only thing which changed is maybe the smartphone. It's not that much. Culturally, we are exactly there where we've been 120 or 50 years ago. This framework, the heartland theory, was developed to understand why specific kind of powers always try to make war and to describe the rules. There's another book, Prisoners of Geography, which is a modern interpretation of it. So it's very difficult to invent new ideas. That's why we recycle the old ones so many times. And Brzezinski wrote it, I think, 1995, with the thesis that if Russia wants to be an empire, then they have to take Ukraine. If they are able to let Ukraine go, then they decide themselves not to be an empire anymore, but something else. We call something else a modern state, which is, as you already know, our superiority. So join this club of superior beings, and then everything will be better. But this is the framework we're still working with. And somebody in the Kremlin knows those stuff. He's working with it. Now I've always to double check what's going on because I'm seeing here different things than there. I think because this is a preview. This is a map. I don't took the time to give a better one. I think you can recognize round about the setting. We call it today Afghanistan. The old name is the Great Game. So, like with Ukraine, who controls Afghanistan is controlling the whole region we call Middle East as the bridge between the, well, how many seas you see. It's awesome. If you're going to write a fantasy roman, take this region. A lot of different cultures, a lot of different seas, a lot of different rivers, great stuff. The Great Game, Afghanistan. The longest war in history of the NATO, I think, or since the 30-year war, was the war in Afghanistan, 20 years. I had a talk of the same friend who said that the way we're thinking was, we are only thinking in categories of Afghanistan. But if you take a step back, Great Game. We've done it before. We are doing war about it. Again, NATO. It was NATO who started it. Another argument in the same topic, the invasion of Iraq. There's an argument from Tom Riggs, a very, very, very impressive journalist on the American side, who analyzed and said the Iraq war never stopped. The invasion, the first Gulf War, started now 20, 25 years ago and never stopped. It's still going on. We are still in this war. The Americans tried to leave this war and it's quite difficult. Same as part of the geography. Why is a power so far away like the US interested in this region to intervene? And of course we're always saying oil, but maybe it's not only the economical category. That's the state of the art today. Same region. Very small group of militias managed to stop the whole trade by constructing an area of denial over 3 seas or 3 gulfs. Impressive. So a good way to be important. Everybody now talks about them. And the small green men once invaded Crimea, now they are learning swimming and diving, and suddenly they are capable of cutting undersea cables on the coast there. Quite impressive skills in a short time. So that's another concept which we don't think about. It's called land and sea. If we think globally, there's a difference between land warfare and the powers who are capable of sea warfare. Also an old methodological figure between the Leviathan and the Behemoth. And Matthias said, I think, a day ago that we are experiencing in Ukraine the war of two Soviet nations, a land war. And if we take this for a modern war, we might make the wrong assumptions. Because sea powers are trying to analyze how two regional powers, two land powers, are fighting with each other. So why war? The one reason I want to give you to think about war is about homeland and occupation. Somebody is making war just to have something more, to be an empire. An empire is by definition not set by borders like a modern nation, but by reach. The Roman showed how it works. Conquering the land and giving it to the soldiers who are then building their farms on it, owning the land, norming the land. But if you think in categories of occupation, you don't think on maneuver. Because nobody is willing to sacrifice the homeland for a better maneuver. Or are you? I've learned in the preparation for the talk that we had the debate in the Cold War. Germany should retreat to the Rhone, and everything else between, well, whatever the red part is and the Rhone, is the space for maneuver warfare. Great idea, only the Germans disagreed. Now we are trying to explain the same for the NATO countries. The Baltics are maneuver space. It works perfectly, but for the Baltics. They don't agree on that. Why? Because they use the word homeland. In German, even better, Heimat. The one thing you don't want to give up, you are willing to die for. On the aggressor's part, you need the theory of occupation. Also, do we have a theory in occupation? Do you know how occupation works? If we want to pacify a land. Same thing for urban warfare. If we try to analyze Israel, so everybody in a civilian part is trying to analyze Israel. But we experience a very new dimension of warfare, urban warfare. Everything is urban space. Do you maneuver there? Or what do we do? Which adjectives are you using to describe what is happening? Besides the fact that everybody is trying to describe what Israel is doing, which is also a good tradition. So in Israel or West Bank or the whole region, we are talking on those topics, on Heimat, so homeland, occupation, urban warfare, all together. Do you maneuver in this region? Or do you build home? Or do you defend home? And if you defend home, you defend your soul, your existence, everything. So you go all in. All in is not an economical category. You can't calculate with that. There was once a theory, we don't read it in German anymore, the theory of a partisan. So which rules apply on this set of warfare? And we don't use it because it's very, very uncomfortable. The theory of a partisan is what is the logic of opposition to an occupation? What is the logic of the occupational power? Which kind of laws might apply or not? And what is going to happen if you break those written and unwritten rules? Obviously, it's happening all of the time. We just don't talk about it because it's not maneuver, it's not clean, it's messy, it's evil, as I said. Now I have 5 minutes for the theory part. Let's have a rush. We have to think the uncomfortable. And then intellectuals, especially the scientific ones, are specialized in thinking in those parts who they can measure, which are easy to reach. Everybody was sure Ukraine would lose. We only underestimated their moral. So how do you measure moral? How do you measure the will to fight? And war, in our theory, is to beat the will to fight, either by beating every means of fighting or by beating the motivation itself. That's why war as an existential category is always coupled to theological ones. We call it salvation. So what are you willing to die for? And the commanders I know have to ask exactly those questions for the people in Germany who are very scared about the new taxes. What are you willing to defend for? What are you willing to die for? I never heard this kind of terms in maneuver warfare, but I still don't know what maneuver exactly is, so that's for the experts. Also, a very old category, you've seen this. So you always need more than life, bigger than life, we call it in the movies, a reason to fight for. Do we have this bigger for life picture to defend or to attack? Do we have the capabilities to open a strategic dilemma for the Russians if they attack the Baltics? And we aren't able to take it back rapidly by maneuver, but we have to attack at a point where the enemy is weakest. Other people are willing to die for, and if yes, what for? You have to answer those questions. And those are not economical questions. Those are not scientific questions. They are theological. Skipping this one, going to that. Somebody has understood it. Even if we say they are only talking on narratives, they are only just means, just narratives. Maybe. Maybe the President Putin thinks it's only a very useful narrative. Okay, but he's recruiting with this narrative. And the first generation of people who are recruited by the narrative are believing in that stuff. They are taking that for granted and for serious. So even if you're using it as a means to your end, the generation you recruit with it goes this way. And it works, doesn't it? Are you impressed by seeing this? Well, I am. The one is 500 years old, the other one 2 years. Meaning, motivation, will to sacrifice. Those are the narratives which are rational, completely rational, but multiplied by infinity. As they ask the question, what you are willing to die for. And if you're not following, we will shoot you. So it's both ways. Another category I want to introduce, which is why we think we are superior. I think I will take more 3 minutes or roundabout. Is the unconditional surrender. The one reason why we think that our way of warfare, so the American way of warfare, which has become ours, is the unconditional surrender. We surrendered everything, our ideology, in Europe and in Japan. That's the German Ministry of Defense. They have this very famous carpet so that everybody can see it from above how it looks if military fails. It's a picture from an airplane over the destroyed Berlin. And the Japanese version is this one. The original. The modern artwork is Godzilla. So if you're looking at a Japanese movie, there's always a city exploding. Unconditional surrender. So they surrendered everything to survive. And then they became allies to the West, to a moral superiority. That's one of the messages I want to show, to present you, to take-home message. The lack of understanding that we argue with superiority might be our downfall. We shouldn't do that. Moral superiority. If you don't heard about it, I'll show you. Moral superiority. We are better. And the better defines which topics we are going to talk about and which topics we are going to spend money on. War is not on the list, because war is amoral. Difficult to argue with that, because if you start arguing, you remember you're evil. This is my favorite one. You know this one, technological superiority. Just a suggestion. I made my homeworks before that, and I checked, and it's only I only quoted. I just took the modern documents I have in Germany, and took the words how we want to win the next war. So we can print that, and maybe we're going for a round or two today. You know that buzzword bingo is the other word is bullshit bingo. Just wanted to make sure that you know that. This was presented in a General Staff College 2 years ago. Multi-domain operations, superior form of superiority. Yeah, just showing maybe. That's the way we are thinking. Very efficient, clean. So yesterday we had it 2 or 3 times. Without blood, without matter. Being smarter, it's a good thing to be. Of course we are, aren't we? So let's check the principles. If we want to understand what we are facing, we should take the principles into account, which we can observe. The principles is not how it started. Maneuver, in my humble view, is only the theory of how to start a war. It's the first 3 to 6 months, roundabout. The quote, the famous one every one of you knows, you have the clocks, we have the time. It's not about how it starts, but how to keep going. So it's a principle about mass, about quantity, about logistics, being cheap and reliable under more difficult conditions than the ones we started at. 1914, everybody was sure they are back at home for Christmas. 3 months. We are doing, as I told you, 100 years left. What changed? Not that much. So being able to analyze this kind of continuous warfare, like in Afghanistan, the theory of occupation, if we have maneuvered a land, and how can we hold it if they don't want us there? The masses, cheap products, lots of them, masses of them. Why do we lack the theory on that? I showed you why, but it's a good thing to know. So to be an academic and to be more reasonable, let's make it a bit more nicely. Let's have a plan B. Let's make maneuver warfare. And just in case something else happens, let's make a plan B for the next 5 years. We will need it. There might be an alliance between Russia, North Korea, Iran, and China, which are the obvious ones. We know that they are talking because the Chinese president called his friends and said, "Ma, please don't start during the Olympic Games. Just a week later. 2 days later, no, a week later." That's why the US intelligence always had to update their forecast when the Ukraine war starts. But which kind of planning do you need? That one president calls the other one and asks him to start the war a bit later. And if you have this kind of planning, I'm very curious to see the rest of the documents nearby. So, to come to an end, 5 minutes, I think I overstretched. 7 minutes. Thank you for your, thank you.